Hey everyone, it's been a long time. Well, not too long, but you get the idea. Finally got the video lag fixed, and so that I don't get a bunch of complaints on the YouTube video, I'm turning the sound down right now, 25%. So you guys definitely won't have a reason to complain. Okay. So yeah, seems to be in good shape. I have switched over to Heart of the Swarm though, and there's no going back. It's just too awesome. I'm so in love with Swarm Host Viper. It's not even funny. I force it even when it's not a good idea. So it's kind of a treat today. I'm actually streaming two games, and I'll put them in two separate VODs. But anyone who missed Nassau 4 missed probably one of the best show matches I've ever seen. Strictly because we all saw something that has never been seen in StarCraft for the first time, which was SkyToss absolutely rolling Zerg. It was so cool. White Raw was just phenomenal. In all three games he did something different, but they all centered around a Stargate opening into continued Stargate production throughout the entire game. And the final game was just amazing. He was up on like 6 Stargate by the end of it. Did not have a single ground unit in his final army. And the entire game he just dumped Zealots when he needed to spend minerals. It was really cool. Alright, so top right we got me. Bottom left we've got Manono. So this is kind of a treat. I jumped on immediately after that show match, and phone call that I don't care about. Jumped in immediately after that show match, and sure enough all the Protoss were anxious to give it a try. So I got some kind of good practice against it, and I got to see the strengths and weaknesses. I'm not going to talk about balance too terribly much because this is Heart of the Swarm. We've got another 3 months of balancing, and really it's just such a cool thing that this matchup has become so dynamic with just a few simple changes on Blizzard's part. This really was encouraging to see. So, nothing too special so far. If you've watched me before, you're familiar with this build. I'll probably use it until the day I die. 11 overpool, second extractor trick, sneak out drone, or I guess people like production better. Sneak out a drone or a second set of Zerglings, depending on the map and the metagame. Right now I've been going a second set of Zerglings. Once in a while I'll catch someone trying to do a Mothership core expand, and 4 Zerglings can punish them if they are saving up the chrono boost for that core. More often than not they are, and the Zerglings get in, and I feel pretty cool. In this case we got a Forge Fast expand, pretty straightforward. So, sorry about the timer there. You guys kind of know when this ends, but you know how I am. I'm not too worried about spoilers as long as we get an entertaining game out of it. So, he's going to get up the Forge Fast expand and be pretty comfortable. 11 overpool doesn't really pressure that much beyond just saying, please don't go Nexus first. Which in this case he did actually. Oh no, this is a different game than I was thinking of. This one's got SkyToss in it too. He's going something kind of wonky this game. He's actually, if we go bird's eye view, we got a Zealot over there, so, or Gateway over there, so he gets out the Zealot to expand, and then this is kind of, I guess, his own version of the core, or the Mothership core expand. It's pretty cool. Look at those physics. I love the new physics, by the way. They're phenomenal. When Zealots die, it's probably one of the coolest things I've ever seen in a strategy game. Yeah, this one, okay, I remember this game. Yeah, I should probably proof watch my games, but I don't like them to be too fresh in my mind, or I just predictively say everything. Yeah, this one was kind of funky because I thought he was like trolling me. This was right after the show match, and he was just like so insistent that Zerg was overpowered. But I mean, across the board, forums, pros, casters, everyone's saying Terran is stronger than Protoss, is stronger than Zerg right now. And I gotta say I agree with it. It just, there's not much else to it. But like I said, I don't want to worry too much about balance. Although I probably will mention, especially in the second game, I'll mention kind of some of the things that, as I've been kind of brainstorming how the game's played out, maybe Blizzard should, look into, especially with regard to some fun ways they could work with the Hydra. Because they've made Protoss so much more dynamic, they now have more room to work with the Hydra, and they no longer have to say, well, it shuts down Immortal Sentry if we make it too strong, so they're not going to have any transition into 3-base play. Now that, air is viable, there's so much more variety that, honestly, air right now feels like it counters Hydra in some ways, so it's interesting. Alright, so let's sneak in, or Zerglings sneak in, I get a probe, no big deal. he shuts this down pretty quick. What I've been doing in Heart of the Swarm, just kind of for funsies, is I've adapted what I was doing in Wings recently, which was Quick Lair. I didn't this game because I kind of reacted to his strange half core expand, half Nexus first. And so I went ahead and went 3 because I knew that especially after getting that first Zealot, he wasn't really going to be able to punish anything. In hindsight, I probably should have stuck with my normal tried and true. I'm just not really comfortable with taking a quick third, and 11 overpool doesn't really work well with it. But what I'm typically doing is what I used to do in Wings, similarly to go Quick Lair, get an Overseer into their base, and just build the counter. So a lot of, Hydra Baneling drop back then, that sort of thing. Except for now, it's Hydra Swarm Host typically. Sometimes it'll be still Hydra drops. Sometimes I'll even stay on 2 base up to Hive Tech, get out quick Swarm Host Viper, and I find that that makes up any base disadvantage I have. They'll have 3 base starting to saturate by the time my Hive finishes, but they'll just never shut down the contain. But who knows if that's going to change now that SkyToss is viable. I didn't get a lot of chance to play after Nassau. I've been busy working, so these are pretty fresh games for me, even though they were played almost a week ago. So yeah, this is the stage of ZVP that still is not very interesting. The Mothership Core has added a little diversity because there is some pressure capability for Protoss now, since Metabolic Boost doesn't mean they lose their entire army if the push doesn't kill the opponent. That's nice, but nothing too special. Now here's actually, this is not necessarily the best way he wants to be using this. Oracle, typically what we're seeing is 4 to 6. That's the point you're going to see a mineral line. I mean, he's hitting 2 places at once, which is kind of cool. I mean, look at that. That's so fast. But what's really good is imagine if there was 4 here. The smart firing results in this taking all of about half a second to clear out that entire mineral line, and that was at probably around 16 workers, 12 to 16 workers. We saw White Rock clear out one full mineral line and a second one for another 10 drones in all of about 3 seconds, and it was just the coolest thing ever. So like the crowd was just going nuts. But yeah, I mean, this is really cool, and I didn't retreat. I'm not entirely sure if I even feel that's the right choice. I think with Oracles, if they are in your base, look at this is great. Yeah, this MMR may not have been entirely the highest, just because I haven't gotten a lot of chance to play. I would say he's probably a low master in hindsight, but, well, who knows, we'll see. Yeah, Oracles, I don't know if the best choice is running away from them. It almost feels like Hellions and then some, because they're extremely fast. They're doing enough DPS that they can kind of almost scoot and shoot. Look at that. Basically, like, one pulse of a Void Ray shot kills them. So running away, I mean, maybe it's going to buy you an extra drone or 2, but my first priority when one sneaks in is just making sure my queens are on the way to shut it down, because they're going to be able to follow along. It's not like you can outrun them with your drones. So he does actually some decent damage, and this I think is going to really change things. The Spore Crawler is now pool tech rather than Evo tech, so that is nice in the fact that now we can go ahead and just make a Spore Crawler per base part of our build without needing to make this really aggressive evolution chamber that's basically a wasted drone, since we don't want to start upgrading until layer tech, especially with the fact that now there's a lot better places to put our gas with Hydra's viable at layer tech and that sort of thing. If anyone hasn't been reading the patch notes, that is one step towards good Hydras, as the movement speed buff is now layer tech. A lot of argument saying that's not quite enough. That kind of remains to be seen. I will say that once Vipers are out, Hydras become so good. They're just a whole different monster. Blinding Cloud is just so good, synergizes so well, and Abduct, pretty much shuts down all Colossus play, so you really only have to worry about High Templar at that point. Alright, so I'm taking a quick glance, and I see the Stargates, I see the Void Rays. I already know what this is. The Void Ray now has a clickable that makes it significantly higher damage versus armored, and I think if I remember right, they upped the base damage a bit too. This is just kind of me commenting on the fact that he actually did watch Nassau, otherwise he wouldn't be going this. So now Void Rays are a lot better versatile unit. They're going to be a lot better in just straight up engagements since they don't have that really long charge time. You know, the problem with the Void Ray previously in big army compositions is by the time they're fully charged, the battle's over, and they already died. So now they click it, and they're able to do, I think it's almost double damage versus armored. Let's actually click on one. I think I should be able to see the tooltip for it. Plus 6 damage versus armored units, and their base damage unupgraded is 6. So they do 6, and then passively up to 10, and then with the clickable up to 16 damage. So almost 3 times damage versus armored with the clickable on. Pretty cool. So yeah, once I recognize he's air, the one thing that this really kind of sinks in for me, just from kind of my basic understanding of this, new dynamic, is similar to when they first were opening Phoenix back when that was really popular. Is you can take bases all day long, and you can drone all day long, but you need to be making spores at the same time. And with the recent Hydra change, that also means I'm going to go ahead and bank heavy on Hydras. I'm also going to mix in some Queens. I really do think Queen Hydra is going to become more and more viable as they start tweaking the Hydra. I don't think the Queen's necessarily going to get any more buffs, but especially once you've got Viper out, Queen Hydra becomes extremely good. One kind of unexpected drawback is the Hydra speed buff creates an issue both with Roaches and with Queens, in that the Hydras really like to sneak in front of their tanking units, especially with Queens, because Queens are slower than Roaches on creep. Here they do just fine. They actually have the same move speed, but once in a while it'll still happen with the Roaches just because they have the same move speed, depending on how they scatter when when they stop moving. But with Queens, if you let them move long enough, the Hydras will be a full second or two ahead of the Queens, even on creep, and so you have to make sure to manually put the Queens back in front before you engage. That's gotten me in some trouble once in a while. But all in all, it's still a really good patch. Hydra gains a lot of harassment potential. So at this point, pretty straightforward. I know he's just making nothing but Void Ray, probably just having fun, honestly. He's probably just seeing what it's capable of. But as you can see from the timer, he makes, thus far, nothing but Void Ray other than those couple of Oracles, and the game goes out to 29 minutes. So, well, first off, look at that. That is, he didn't even have the overcharge on, and that is what happened to my Corruptors. It took, half a tick for one Corruptor to die. Pretty cool. You'll see when the overcharge actually kicks in later. I discontinue Corruptors so fast because it sinks in. He's going all Void Ray. If he was mixing in some Carriers and Tempest, Corruptors may have some viability kind of sprinkled in. But in this case, if he's going to stay entirely Void Ray, Corruptors are not hard countered by Void Ray. That is that deal is kind of sealed. Used to be you could go blow for blow with them to some degree. Mixing in Vipers, if you haven't watched the beta in a while, one big change is Vipers can now abduct air, so that's pretty amazing. If you really are out of date with the beta, then you don't know about this ability. They no longer provide vision. They can kind of consume buildings similar to in Wings of Liberty, and then they'll go ahead and, rather than units like the Defiler did, and then they'll gain that energy. So pretty spiffy. So yeah, my plan at this point is just, I've seen a lot of Void Rays. I'm not entirely sure if he's going to transition into Tempest. Honestly, the best thing he could have done, especially once he already saw some Hydras in play, is to move into Tempest, because Tempest do great against Hydras. You can actually kite the Hydras. And they also do pretty good against Vipers since they outrange the Abduct. But nevertheless, Viper's going to be my best choice, especially if he mixes anything bulkier than a Void Ray. I'm going to be able to go ahead and grab that out of the pack so that my Hydras don't auto-attack. For example, Carriers are now viable, so if I've got my Hydras auto-attacking Interceptors and Void Rays, the Carriers get a lot of free hits. So that gives me room to go ahead and pull them out. So he's dumping all of his minerals into cannons, which is fine. I think the stronger play is to dump it into Zealots for harassment, get some proxy pylons out. But, it is what it is. That's the other nice thing, is you've got your Blinding Cloud on your Vipers, and that affects buildings as well. So Planetary Fortress even, it's going to drop a Planetary Fortress down to 1 range, which is pretty damn cool. So here's that Abduct coming into play. Nothing but Void Rays, so I might as well spend the energy, get some free picks. And it's actually pretty cool. The tighter packed your Hydras are, Abduct really kind of plays along with your kind of plays well along with the unit pathing, because typically the big downside of going ground versus air is you've got to wait for your units to line up and finally everything's firing, while the air is just stacked up and they're firing the second the battle starts. So the cool thing about opening up with Abduct is it actually will completely shut down that dynamic. In fact, you get the first shot because you're pulling them into your engagement, and then they have to move into range. So that's pretty cool. Shuts down those carriers nicely. Mothership was kind of a nice choice. I don't know if I really think it's worth the investment anymore now that Vortex is useless. I can kill one non-massive unit per cast. It's just, the energy's just not worth it. If it was only 50 energy, it would be pretty cool. But for 100 energy, you know, I guess Dustin Browder just kind of likes nerfing things so that they're no longer usable, which I don't know if that's really a good idea. But, you know, he outright said in an interview a while back with, I forgot who it was, a guy from Liquid, I can't remember his name, that once in a while they consider it a good design choice just to nerf something to the point that it's only used in mess-around games, which I don't understand that logic. I would think you would want the game to be as dynamic as possible. Alright, so continuing on here, it's not the most interesting play on his part. The next game is a lot more creative, it's a lot more fun, but I thought this would be kind of a good example of just how much can be done here with just simply making Void Rays, a few carriers, and pressing E and just letting things happen. I mean, there's no target firing, there's no nothing, and I'm microing as well as I can, doing a ton of abducts, a ton of transfuse. I do miss some transfusions. I've gotten lazier with that lately, honestly, as I've become more macro-oriented. Because it used to be I would hit every single transfuse until my queens were out of energy, but I would have no rally. So, you know, here instead I've got, you know, my Hydra's producing smoothly and missed a few transfusions. I don't know which is necessarily the better choice, but anyways. This last engagement, if I remember it, is actually where it gets pretty cool, because he gets quite a bit of his bulk back. I take a while to remax, and we really get to see the Vipers do what they do best. Although I'm maybe thinking of a different game, because I played so many SkyToss games as I was winding down for the night after Nassau. Pretty much every Protoss went air. It's pretty cool. I think the other game is actually even longer than this. I think it's like 31 minutes. So now that I think about it, I'm probably not going to cast that one consecutively. But you may see it in the next couple days. I'm going to be streaming this weekend, so keep that in mind if you want to get back into watching the stream. I'm trying to make sure I stream on weekends. I don't know that I can commit to much more than that. I've had a habit of, you know, all throughout my, you know, time with StarCraft of saying, oh, I'm going to do this, it's going to be really cool, and then, you know, something comes up in life and I don't do it. So I'm trying not to do that to you guys, because that's not fair. So I would say weekends are pretty reliable for at least a few hours. When I have the time, I'll stream the entire day, but there's a lot of other things going on in life, so we'll see. So yeah, at this point it's winding down a little bit. A lot of positioning. This is more just because I see how passive he's playing. I don't really know how much he has. In a perfect world, I would have had an Overseer with this army and thrown a bunch of changelings at him to see if I could push and win. Because really I could have. We see from the supply, it's not, I mean, sure he has higher tech units, but it's just not going to be enough to compensate for 50 supply deficiency. But, you know, in this case, I'd rather play it safe than sorry, since I didn't have any changelings available, so I went ahead and just took the opportunity to take out the third. He trades. This is good, but not enough, just because I've confirmed he's not taking his fifth, and I already have my fifth finished, so I just kind of transfer over, and we go down to 4 base versus 3 base, not mining necessarily, but, you know, total. And that's always going to work out well for Zerg. So, you know, you can keep trading, and if you trade 1 base for 1 base, you know, guess who's going to run out first? So, it's not necessarily, I think probably, given that my army was so much larger than his, though, he made the right choice just to see if I would continue trading. Just because Void Rays do so much damage. You know, buildings are armored, so every time they pop that clickable, Void Rays are just melting the buildings. If he had some oracles in there, he probably could have traded actually really effectively. Because oracles actually still do really strong damage to buildings as well. It's just now they specialize on units, or on light units. Alright, so he hit a good recall. Didn't really lose too terribly much and did some decent damage. Got my Spire. I don't know that I necessarily cared about my Spire, given that I was using Vipers to counter his massive units, but still pretty cool. Alright, there you go. I love that. I gotta rewind that just real quick. Like, that is just so cool. I'm so pumped for Vipers because of this right here. And I'm still getting the hang of the micro, because you can technically spam it. If you've got enough energy for 2 abducts, you can actually just hold down Shift, queue up 8 abducts for 4 Vipers, and you'll see just 8 units fly into your into your pack of Hydras and die. So I'm still getting the hang of that, but it's going to be so cool once everyone starts to really feel comfortable with their Vipers. So yeah, I get my 4 free Void Ray kills, and that's just such a cool advantage, because before they even get the majority of their army firing, they're already losing, 8 supply worth of units. That's a big deal in a 200 versus 200 engagement. That just kind of starts to escalate as the battle carries out. So yeah, that's the end of it. Now it's just kind of waiting for him to GG out. I love that. I thought he was joking at first, and then, it just gets kind of bad. And you didn't do anything, but the micro involved in what I was doing was probably, 10 times what he was doing, which was just attacking. But, oh well, it's, what are you going to do? Letting queens die for free? Too busy chatting? Gotta troll people. It's more important than, actually playing well. Priorities and all. So yeah, the next game, this one, nothing too terribly unique in his play, but the important thing is, had he done this pre-patch, when the Void Rays had their old charge dynamic, he would have just been absolutely crushed by the first engagement. And instead, he had a pretty decent game, did quite a bit of, and held quite a few pushes, even though I had superior economy for most of the game. So, it's pretty cool. Now, the next game we're going to actually see, I'll go ahead and spoil a little bit of it, we're going to see both Carriers and High Templar as staple units of his composition. And it's really cool. Alright, so I'll cast that one a little later. I'm kind of getting hoarse here, so I'm going to stop for this one and wait for the next one for another day. But now I'm going to go ahead and get to some games. Alright, thanks for watching, guys.